Okay, so Vanessa rode her bike to the conclave at 10 kilometers per hour and then walked back to school at 4 kilometers per hour. If the round trip took her 14 hours, how far was it to the site of the conclave? Begin by drawing a diagram of the distances traveled and writing the distance equation. All right, so this is a diagram where the school is over here and the conclave is over here. And she rides her bike to the conclave. So this way, and we'll call that distance d sub b for distance on bike. And then she rides back to school. Well, she walks back to school. So walk to school. And that's the same exact distance as the way to the conclave. Or the distances are equal, but we'll still call this distance d sub w for d distance walking. All right. And then they give us some other information. They tell us that her biking rate is 10 kilometers per hour. So I'm just going to write that here. So rate on the bike is 10. And it tells us that her rate walking is 4. So rate walking is 4 kilometers per hour. All right. And then it tells you that the round trip took her 14 hours. What that means is that the time it took to walk there and back altogether was 14 hours. So round trip means there and back. So that means that the time on the bike plus the time walking was 14 hours. All right. And so now I can remember that when I have a problem where the distances are equal, I can use my rate times time equals distance. I know that the rate times time going there and the rate times time going back are equal because the distances are equal and rate times time equals distance. So the rate on the bike times the time on the bike is equal to the rate walking times the time walking. When we have a problem where the distances are equal, we can write this equation. Rate times time equals rate times time. It's just another way of saying distance equals distance. All right. I have the rate on the bike, which is 10. I don't have the rate, the time on the bike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this equation over here that I wrote about the round trip, that I'm adding the times together to get a total of 14, and I'm going to solve that equation for t sub b. So to do that, I'm going to subtract t sub w on both sides. So these cancel. T sub w minus t sub w is 0, and t sub b plus 0 is just t sub b, and that is 14 minus t sub w. So I'm going to use this here for my t sub b over here. So I'm going to put parentheses because I want to multiply that rate times the whole thing, 14 minus t sub w. And then on this side, I know that the rate walking is 4, and the time walking is just t sub w. All right, so now I have one equation in one unknown, so I can solve it. I'm going to distribute that 10, so I'll have 140 minus 10 t sub w equals 4 t sub w. And then I'm going to add 10 t sub w on both sides. So that's going to be 140 equals 14 t sub w. So divide both sides by 14, and you're going to get that t sub w equals 10. All right, so that's 10 hours to get back to school walking. And the question they ask is, how far was it to the site of the conclave? So you're looking for the distance. You want to know the distance. Well, you've got the time it took to walk, and you know the rate it took to walk. So I can figure out what the distance is. Rate walking times time walking. And if we had solved for the rate, if we had solved for the time biking, we could have used that. It wouldn't matter which one we use. Either rate walking times time walking or rate biking times time biking would still give us the same distance because the two distances are the same. So r sub w is 4, t sub w is 10. That's 40 kilometers. And that's the answer to the problem. How far was it to the site of the conclave?